Well, I guess we'll get started.
Okay.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Shop and Chivalry podcast. I'm here with my guest today, Katie Weldon.
That's me. Thanks for
you?
having me. Good. I thought about coming in with like a 32-ounce Red Bull and just really just like chugging it right when we first started.
Full send.
However, it has been so long since I've had one that I may, you can do like back tucks and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I need to do. Drink the Red Bull so I could maybe do a back tuck.
I'm all about it.
We'll do it next time.
Okay.
We'll
For sure. Well, Katie, we've been talking about getting you on the show for quite some time now. I did interview your husband, Ben.
You did.
The stud himself.
The stud, the man, the myth, the man.
Yeah, so that was one of my first episodes, maybe like episode...
I think it was 3. 'Cause I listened to that one too. I got to do my research before I come in. Yeah. Listen.
Now, I didn't ask you this before we started. Do you have like a drop dead time, a time that you have to get out of here?
No,
Okay.
I'm all yours.
Gotcha. All right.
I got a babysitter. We're good.
Okay. Speaking of which, you just had a baby.
I just had a baby.
You just had a human inside of you.
I did.
Right?
And never again.
Never. Really?
And I truly mean that.
Oh, wow.
I truly mean it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we want more kids, we'll adopt or, we'll foster or something.
Fair enough. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so what was the experience like? I mean, looking back.
I hated pregnancy. All of it. And I don't mean that for the fact of like, it really is this life-changing moment of, you're carrying this life inside of you and it's no longer about you. Maybe you shouldn't be eating a whole bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos right now. There's no telling what that's going to do to the baby. But overall, it was, my first trimester, I was very sick. Couldn't stand up. Was, low blood sugar, all that stuff. Second trimester was good because it hit around Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these like things like king cake. Yeah. That was fine. And then the third trimester hit and it was just... Once again, couldn't eat anymore. I lost 6 pounds before I went in to deliver just because I couldn't eat.
Really?
Could not eat. Yeah. But the whole birthing experience was very interesting. I went in trying to see how long I could go without getting an epidural. So, not long.
I hear that's a dangerous game to play because it gets to a point where you can't get one.
I didn't even get close to the line.
Okay,
Brian,
gotcha.
Okay? They came in and, they were pushing on my stomach and this was like at midnight. They said I was contracting, but I didn't feel anything. I was like, I am going to rock this. And then 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock hit and they, pushed again because, they're just trying to see like where the baby's at. And they told me that I started feeling it in my back and I would lay on my side. And when I would lay on my side, her heart rate would drop. So I was having to lay on my back. And they were like, okay, we'll come do this again in an hour. And I said, an hour? I need an epidural now.
Yeah.
And so that was at 5, 6 in the morning, and then I had her at 3.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would recommend an epidural for everyone.
So I've gotten one because I've got an avulsion of the L5-S1. So the lowest lumbar vertebrae and the S1 I think is the hips basically. And so it shifted. And so basically if you can imagine 2 circles, right? Over top of each other. And that's how nerves move through your spine. One shifts, that opening smaller.
Dude, you're making me like cringe a little bit.
Sorry.
No, we can talk about it, but it's like, no, you're good. It's just, what happened?
I don't know. It just happened to me. I can tell you the story. So I was in Italy, in Sicily, Italy.
Okay, we get it.
Okay.
Show off. Yeah.
5 years, 50 countries, no big deal. So I was there on a military mission and we get alerted. Alerted just means we're called to execute the mission. We have to be airborne in 3 hours, 45 minutes. Sure, all that stuff. I go to reach for the phone just to answer the call and I feel something. Right? Now, I didn't have a night of drinking anything. I had pizza, a couple beers, went to bed. And when I got up, I fell to my knees. My body couldn't support my weight.
Oh, Jesus.
So I got as much of my flight suit as I could and I crawled to the elevator, pulled myself up and then kind of fell out of the elevator and the rest of my crew was down there. They had to go get all my stuff and then I was sent to the hospital and they didn't know what it was. Like they just called it a back spasm and for like 10 days after that, I was stuck in Italy. They left me there. The crew left me there and they went back home and I had to hitchhike my way back on military aircraft to get back home. But they gave me morphine, did nothing for me.
Morphine did nothing.
Morphine did nothing.
That's when you know it's...
They had to give me Demerol, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And they said that it was 10 times more powerful than morphine. And that shit beats the hell out of aspirin.
But could you imagine like comparing the both? Like you take your aspirin, you're like, oh, my headache's gone a little bit. And then you take that.
Yeah. And then you go to a new dimension.
Brain.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how Rick and Morty was created.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I eventually just got it checked out and found that I had that shift. And so if I do anything overhead that forces me to hyperextend my back, it's a predictable like 3 to 10 days I'm going to have where I can barely support the weight of my own body. So what I have to go do, it's not that I physically can't, it's that the nerves are causing so much trauma around the bone there and just constantly hitting it, resting on it, pinch by it, whatever. And then my body eventually just shifts back. So I have to go and get injections.
Yep.
And then I did a nerve ablation one time where they burn the ends of the nerves in the spine so that I can't feel that. And like, so right now, one of the side effects, I'm going on way too long. This is your interview, but no,
I want to know about your burned nerves.
Yeah. So they go in and they just start burning them, and it's great, but it's crazy painful. It's the only time in any medical procedure I yelled because of the pain, and like my wife was outside and I came out and she was in tears because she thought like something bad had gone wrong or whatever. But they've got to use this like very precise instrument to go in your back. I'm on a table. It's like this big machine that comes around you, and they're going through X-ray live and just kind of burning off, and you can feel the heat. Like it's crazy.
That makes me shake a little bit thinking about that.
Yeah, right. But so it's just for pain. Like I don't have any feeling down the back of my left leg all the way down to my last 2 toes. So I don't feel that anymore. So
I mean, who needed to in the first place?
Right. Well,
I mean,
one more story about nerves. I'm sorry. So when I got my wisdom teeth taken out, this is in California, they're like, hey, look, just so you know, we didn't get all of one tooth because the root was wrapped around the nerve. We would have ended up pulling the nerve out. And I said, well, what's the effect of that? I was like, could I use my jaw still? And they go, well, yeah, you just wouldn't have any feeling. You know what my first thought was? Because I boxed a little bit and I was like, this kind of sounds like an advantage. and
is that what they're doing now?
What's
Did
that?
Floyd Mayweather get his nerve taken out of his jaw?
No, he's just the greatest defensive fighter of all time. But
with the worst hairline.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Not wrong. Definitely not wrong. But he's so small, he could, if he wanted to live economically, he could probably fit easily into most overhead storage bins on planes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. He's
so
a tiny guy.
I mean, there's no telling how many planes he has.
It's the money team.
Is he going to win?
I think it's all a show. Yeah.
Well, look at the Conor McGregor thing. I mean,
that was actually a fairly technical fight, though. It actually was good. I'm sure there was a no knockout clause somewhere that hidden under some NDA or something. But like, as far as like a fight, Conor didn't do bad.
He didn't do bad.
Yeah.
But the promotions leading up to it, whoever their PR team is, good for them.
Fantastic.
Because I mean, was it scripted? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Was I into it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of it.
100%.
I was watching every single one just to see what happened.
And I don't watch pre-fight stuff,
not at
but
all.
like that, I tuned in.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody streamed on Facebook Live before they shut it down. I was watching it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to pay for this fight. It's not going to last that long. So.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting though to see all this stuff. I mean, all this prize fighting stuff. I mean, it's
well, like Lamar Odom is boxing Aaron Carter.
I forgot about that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing.
Look,
I'm going to pull for Lamb. I got to pull for Lamb because, so my wife used to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians back in the day. Yeah, right. And so, of course, I'd sit in there because...
I'm sure you had to.
I had to twist my arm,
Sure.
So, and this is pre-cocaine, Lamar Odom. So.
Well, before we knew.
Fair enough.
But Chloe does seem better. Do I like Tristan Thompson? No.
No, well, I don't think there's any good reason to like him based on his.
But I mean, when she was with James Harden, every single person she's ever been with has cheated on her. So I mean, at what point are you like, listen?
Maybe the type of person you're after, like a young superstar athlete.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which maybe we need to go after Bill Gates now.
Apparently that's a thing. Apparently people. Well, he's getting divorced.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, where?
So I wonder what that's gonna look like.
And no prenup. I'm like, man, she did it right. She did it right. I'm sure that it will. I mean, because he like transferred like billions of dollars into like some kind of stock market thing for her. But I'm like, you know what? But I read that it was because of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Because he was like,
he might have been involved.
But I get most of my news source from TMZ.com, and I have no shame in saying that.
Yeah.
So Who knows? Who knows? Sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. But does it keep me on the edge? Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate that. Yeah. It's that whole Epstein thing is very odd. I mean, and Bill Gates seems like a younger Bill Gates was kind of a Weasley dude. You know, it kind of like
everybody got to the top somehow.
Yeah.
Everybody has gotten to the top somehow. And it seems like everybody has gotten to the top because of Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh,
and
man.
I mean, yeah. So here we are.
What a crazy story.
I didn't know we would end with Jeffrey Epstein.
No, yeah. Well, we haven't ended. We should probably get back on the appropriate track here.
We'll continue this later.
Yeah. So Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where do you work?
Okay. I can do that. So I will be 31 in a month, which is insane.
Congrats.
There's definitely moments where I'm like, I'm 15. And then there's other moments where I'm like, I'm 89.
Yeah.
So that's me. I work at the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce. I'm the programming director, which is a lot of words for that I put on all kinds of events, professional development events, networking events. We recently, on Tuesday, May 11th, had an annual meeting, which I obviously wasn't there for because I'm on maternity leave right now. But, you know, those kind of events with the chamber, I mean, just allowing people and businesses the opportunity to kind of grow and reflect and, you know, better their business. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier, I just had a daughter, Annie, and then my husband, Ben, and then I have 2 dogs, a Basset and a Cocker, Lucy and Cagney. And then I'm wearing my Junior Auxilary shirt.
Okay.
I am the president of the Junior Auxilary at Biloxi-Ocean Springs, which a lot of people don't know what any of those words mean either.
I did not know about it until you mentioned it.
Right.
And
to you're be honest, from Ocean Springs, right?
Right. And the thing is, going through the website, I want to talk about all this stuff, but going through the website, I guess we can start here. It wasn't super clear what they did.
Right.
So, but I guess they're a vehicle for community type of events? Or?
So there's the National Association of Junior Auxiliaries.
Okay.
Like that's the big umbrella. And then under that are the city chapters. So like there's us, Gulfport, Pascagoula, Moss Point, Hattiesburg. I mean, like all over. So and each chapter we have guidelines set by the national organization. And you'll hear me say things like JA, that means Junior Auxiliary, or JABOS, that's Junior Auxiliary Biloxi-Ocean Springs.
Okay.
So we have these things set by the national organization that are like guidelines. Like each chapter needs to be run by Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure. But other than that, I mean, the projects or more like events we put on to help the community are kind of up to the chapter's discretion. Okay. So with, JBOS, a lot of our programs focus mainly on children ages 5 to 18. And right now, I think we have 12 service projects, meaning some of those could be connected within the community. Like we have one called Community Connection, where we'll work with like Abundant Life Church does food drives, or we'll work with the Angel Tree organization, like, call prisoners' families, see if they're interested in, having, gifts sent from their parent in prison. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we have the conversations with these people. And then we have other stuff like Kids in Court Care, where we work directly with CASA. We recently just did a huge diaper and backpack drive.
What is CASA?
CASA is the ones like court advocacy for kids.
Gotcha.
In the foster care system.
Okay.
So, which when I was doing my research for this, in Harrison County, I asked how many students in the county were in foster care. 900, over 900 kids.
Really?
900 kids.
There's a guy I went to school with. Brennan's his first name. I forget his last name. Sorry, Brennan, but they just became foster parents. I think they picked up 3
Jonathan
kids.
Brennan.
Yes, there we go.
Yes. Because he won that beard contest. Yeah. And so they went and adopted. And you know what the crazy thing is I'm adopted.
Okay.
And Ben is halfway adopted. Okay. His dad adopted him.
Yeah.
And then Ben's dad's fully adopted too.
Oh, wow.
So.
Interesting.
There you go. And I was in foster care for 5 weeks.
Yeah, I was in foster care, I think, for almost a year. So I was an abused child. Okay. And so for the first 4 years of my life, I was in this abusive household in Texas and became a ward of the state. My dad didn't know I existed. I was born out of wedlock. So he had to come and fight the state to get custody. It's never really a question of whether or not he's my real dad because
the forehead. See how handy that comes in? Mm-hmm. Look at us.
One of the tribe. But
so how did that work when you were there? Like, how did your dad find out?
So I think my mom mentioned that there was a biological father that she knew of. And so they knew that they were military. And so there's ways that the states can communicate with the Department of Defense and try and locate this individual. At the time, he was stationed in Holland.
Okay.
Yep.
Love Holland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good times.
Yep. Ditto.
Good times. Anyways, so, I mean, he just came and.
Yeah. And so what was really, this is a true story, by the way.
Oh, I'm so ready.
Oprah Winfrey was doing this thing where she was reaching out to service members that had adopted or whatever, or been reconnected with kids. My dad got contacted to be on Oprah. And so we were supposed to go on Oprah. At the time, the military public affairs did not want my dad to do it.
Why?
I've actually never asked that question about why, but I don't know, maybe it had to do with talking about abuse or whatever. But what's interesting too is that my dad tells me, and I've met somebody from whenever he was working in Holland at the time. He was a young enlisted person, and they were saying, you don't want any part of that. Don't go pick him up. You know, he's an abused kid. You don't want any. Yeah. So they were actively discouraging him from even coming to fight and pick me up from the States.
And look at you.
Look at me.
But the thing is like, so many, but how often does that happen that those kids are just counted out?
Well, and those are elements of the foster care problem that people don't even consider.
Right.
Is that people know that you're taking on quite the weight,
Sure.
quite the job. And of course the question is, well, why would you put yourself through it? Because you kind of don't have to, right? You could just avoid it.
You could.
But there's something else. And my dad has that thing where he's, he just feels obligated to take care of people.
As he should have been.
Right.
I mean, let's go ahead and say that.
He's also a medical care provider, so it's kind of part and parcel of who he is.
And God bless them, because I couldn't be a nurse. I couldn't be a doctor, not because of the patients, just because of, I couldn't keep up with all that stuff. All the textbooks they have to read. Absolutely not.
Well, I was coming out of high school. My plan was to go to USM and go into nursing.
Okay. What happened?
I didn't think I could disconnect.
Okay.
And I didn't want to,
I understand that.
So that was the reason.
Well, I mean, you seem like an empath too. So I think that would be kind of hard for you to.
I've got the capacity. I've got control of it,
Yeah.
So unless it's a story that someone tells me about loss or grief, and then it's just, it just flows. So.
Which once again makes you human.
Yeah.
And shows that you're not a robot. Because when people tell stories like that, if you don't have the reaction, then it's kind of like literally what has happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But I mean, so many of these kids that we interact with, we have a project called Someone to Talk To, where we go into the schools and we do a puppet show. And the puppet show shows inappropriate touching or a caregiver. It's just unethical things that shouldn't be happening. And, we do this in front of the kids, and there's counselors in there and their teachers. And one time I was doing it, and the kid raised his hand and it was like, my daddy does that. But the thing,
what do you do in that situation?
The good thing is we provide the information, their counselors provide the support. That's the good thing about Someone to Talk To.
Okay.
But like other times, like this year we got to hand deliver angel tree gifts. I mean, from Gulfport all the way to Moss Point. We were like delivering these gifts for kids whose parents were in prison. And some of the houses, it was astonishing. And I'm not talking about, it doesn't matter if they have a roof over their head, cleanliness, they're being taken care of. But there were some of these places where you were just astounded that a child was living in that.
A buddy of mine, shout out to Chris Dixon, he got hit by an IED in Afghanistan. He's good though. He's fine, but weird way to segue, right? So he's a medical care provider as well, was in the military, and he would tell me just on base and base housing, he would go into homes because of a domestic, abuse thing. He has to show up, it's part of the base response, and there'd be like feces on the wall. So like just terrible conditions. And it's hard to believe that even people in the military would, put their kids through that,
Well, the military has all types. I mean, just like Angel Tree, like, there's some people you pull up to their house and you're like, you have a parent in prison? I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that. But I mean, we interact with so many different kids. We just had a Girl Scout event where they could earn their Staying Fit badge. And these are obviously like very involved parents. Like they bring their kids here for an entire day. They sit around, do all this stuff. And then we have the opposite side where, you're working with CASA and you're seeing like, all these foster children that just need help, that either need a good home or want to go back to their parents, and their parents are fighting for them. So we also work with the local shelter. We go in every Tuesday. This was before COVID. We're still waiting to go back. But every Tuesday, while their mothers were in counseling, we would be with the children, doing crafts, talking to them, things like that. And I can remember the first time I went, it was a Valentine's Day party. And you can always tell when a child has been through something because they act of either two ways. They are either extremely distant and will not speak to you, or they are extremely clingy and will attach to you the entire time, won't detach. So I had this girl attached to me the entire time. We made Valentine's Day cards, all this stuff. And when I'm leaving, she hands me this heart and she was like, will you please keep this? I had the best time today. And that's just a Tuesday for 1 hour. 1 hour you're with these kids and just showing them that kind of attention. Because, I mean, displaced from their homes, they're coming into the shelter, they don't know anybody, they're with all these different kids. And, I mean, imagine not being able to have your friends over because you can't tell anybody where the shelter is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell a soul.
And it just goes to show how little it takes to actually make an impact
Extremely little.
In somebody's life.
Extremely little, which there are some, I mean, our members range from CEOs to, stay-at-home moms. I mean, they just, and we try to do 30 service hours a year. Each member, 30 service hours a year. And this year we've had people go over 100. We've had a lot of people go over 50. And I mean, these are people that are working 8 to 5.
When you say this year, you mean like since January 1st?
I mean, from May of 2020 to April of 2021, we have serviced over 13,000 children.
Wow. That's amazing. And then all from just the Gulf Coast? Huh?
All from the Gulf Coast.
Okay. All 6 coastal counties?
We service it. It's not counties necessarily. It's more like cities. So we have Biloxi, Van Cleve, D'Iberville, St. Martin, Ocean Springs, D'Iberville. Those are our 6. And then, Gulfport comes in and does Gulfport and Long Beach.
Yeah.
And then you have Pascagoula, Moss Point too.
Okay.
So we if we hear of a kid that's needing help in Gulfport, we reach out to Gulfport. Or if we hear of a kid that needs help in Moss Point, we'll reach out to Moss Point's chapter.
Give me some context here.
How
big of a problem is like foster in terms of how many foster children there are in those areas relative to, say, I don't know, is there a national average number or something? I mean,
I wouldn't know the national average, but I will tell you, I was reading a study.
Name's Greg, by the way.
Greg, what's up, my man?
He just hangs out.
It's fine. I mean, everybody has a purpose, and the fly is here for a reason. Yeah. He needs to hear this. I was reading something the other day that said, if one family from every church in Mississippi adopted a foster child, there would be no children in foster care. That's one family. Now, that national average is if one family from every 3rd church adopted a foster child, the United States wouldn't have foster kids.
Wow.
That's every 3rd church in the whole nation.
Well, I think that puts it into perspective.
When you read that, you're like, so if every one family in every church just adopted a kid, there would be no kids in foster care?
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane when you think about it. I mean, because there's, there's different types of foster situations.
Sure.
You could have, one where you're the only kid, and then you can have another where
you're part of a well-established family. It's got, 4 or 5 kids in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but 900 kids in Harrison County. Still waiting to hear about Jackson County. But those are, when I asked how many students.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's like the entirety or if that's just the students like in school.
So what happens after they reach the age of 18?
Aren't they just, on their own, right?
And so what happens there? I mean, is there a statistical kind of answer maybe?
Not from me.
Yeah.
Not from me.
Yeah. That seems to be the tragedy of it.
It is. And what's so important is, and what we're really trying to focus on this year, because, to become a member of Junior Auxiliary, you have to be put up by 2 people one an active person or one who has gone live, meaning that they've done 5 years of Junior Auxiliary and then you're done. And so they're in good standing. So for the past couple of years, it's been really important to us to make sure that we have people in the chapter who know what's going on.
Yeah.
So we actually have somebody who works for CASA in the chapter now. So somebody who works directly with these foster kids, goes to the houses and deals with them and then comes back and says, we need to be doing more about this. That's the kind of people I want in my chapter.
Gotcha.
That I want people to say, you know what, we're not hitting this. We have a counselor who works at Ocean Springs, and last year she said, we are not doing enough with the homeless population of students. And I was like, what do you mean by homeless? Well, now the word I think is displaced. And she said, that's anybody who is living in a hotel, living in their car, living with a different family member. And that's 0.7% in Ocean Springs.
0.7%. So
0.07, sorry.
0.07%.
0.07.
That seems to be fairly low. And
it's fairly low, but when you think about it, we did this thing where we did, if the student came, if the family came and didn't disclose their name, but went to a counselor and said, we're living in a motel. We're doing this. We're doing that. We created these family bins, and it would have laundry detergent for them because most of the time they don't have a functioning refrigerator. So you're having to do things where they can just make mac and cheese with a bottle of water.
Sure.
So it had all this other stuff and, clothes, things like that. And I think we, in total, before COVID happened, made about, in the span of 6 months, I think we made 12 of those boxes just for students in Ocean Springs.
Yeah, the homeless population was kind of a large topic of discussion during the local election, and to be honest with you, very surprised by that. And it's one of those things where I don't really see it that often. I mean, there's one or two people, but I remember growing up around here, and there were two homeless people that were like well known. And
the one that rode the bicycle with the crazy hat.
Yep.
I don't know the other one.
And then the other one was a lady who had like green hair, and she was always walking Highway 90.
Huh.
Yeah, but those were the only two homeless people that I had ever seen. So I didn't know that it was that much of an issue. I heard someone tell me that Ocean Springs buses their homeless people to other cities. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's true.
That sounds like the rhetoric of something I've heard before as well.
Yeah, exactly. But so how did we get this kind of problem here in Ocean Springs? I mean, it seems that there's not a lot of homes that are without people occupying it,
But I mean, like, obviously when you're working with these kids, especially the ones where you're not, because we have some projects that it's like very lovey-dovey, you don't get into that kind of stuff. And then we have projects where it's like we go to the shelter, or we have a project called I Matter, which is our child welfare one. And these people apply because they need help. They don't know how to handle their finances. They can't find a job. They don't have a car to get to work.
Sure.
And we go in and interview these people, take them on for 2 years and teach them finances, help them find a car, help them balance their checkbooks, help them figure out, sometimes they don't even have beds in their house. Don't have beds. We go out, find beds. Luckily, I don't think we've ever had to actually purchase a bed because the community is just that supportive of us that we're able to do that. But, it happens. And there's a story of this student was living in a hotel with her parents, and, we're like, well, what can we do? And they had no interest in leaving. They had no interest in bettering themselves. But that's one out of how many parents that are actually trying to do better.
Well, and to be fair, it's the sort of devil
Oh, yeah.
To leave that
That's
and then
a good point.
confront something else. I mean, as far as they knew, life was satisfactory, if not good, but.
I cannot imagine living in a hotel that was not the hotel on Home Alone. But if you don't know better, you don't do better.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to know better.
Well, I've ran into people because, there's all walks of life about people in the military, and they'll come in and they get right out of basic training and they make more money than their parents. Those same people, though, will, in my opinion, run a high risk of getting themselves in financial trouble because their parents didn't.
Exactly. That's right.
They didn't do well with money. I've had to teach, this is more of just kind of a, sign of the times, I guess, but I've had to teach people how to write their signature in cursive so they could open a bank account.
I believe it. I used to work at a bank. I've done literally everything you could think of. So, we had a guy come into the bank one time and, to withdraw, he didn't have his stuff. So he had to write his address. And he lived at Perk Beach, and he asked me how to spell Perk. And then he asked me how to spell beach. He had no idea how to spell anything. And this man was probably in his late 40s. But I mean, it's out there because these kids don't go to school. They leave school and then nobody ever checks up on them again. Or maybe they do 3 times and then, I've tried, but that's that.
And that to me highlights the value of mentorship and whatnot.
Right.
And that's why these organizations like the Boys and Girls Clubs, these institutionalized organizations that have a history of doing it, that's why they're so important.
Extremely important. And we've done stuff with the Boys and Girls Club and, Legacy Business League is doing a lot with those students now too. And there's another nonprofit out of Gulfport that is now providing suits to men to go on interviews and to get practice and stuff too. So there's all these ideas you can pull from. So even if you have, like us in Junior Auxilary, we see what these people are doing and we're like, if they're doing that in Gulfport, we can do that here. We can do that if Moss Point sees something, we can do that there. And I think that's the thing that's like helped us get through COVID is like, it would be so easy for us to just be like, we couldn't have a fundraising event this year. Well, we're done. But we like tapped into our reserves and we were like, we're going to serve more kids now than ever.
What gets you into nonprofit? Like, what fires you up about it? Why do you do it? Because I mean, from the very nature of it, like, yes, you get to, is it just simply being able to impact other people? I mean, why do you do it?
I think it starts, for a lot of people, it starts at a young age. So I know for me, my parents, I was heavily involved in the Baptist church, and my parents made sure that I was volunteering in some capacity with my church or with something. So I can remember as early as 9th grade going to the food pantry every Tuesday and Thursday and having to work the food pantry for 2 hours. That was ingrained in me. And I continued that. Every club that I got involved in through high school, through college, even afterwards, had some kind of volunteerism in it. So I think a lot of that comes from your teachers, your parents, things like that, to where it's like ingrained in you. Like, if you're not volunteering, if you literally have all this mobility, this accessibility to help someone, why aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're just sitting around not doing anything, because, when I first moved down here in 2016 and I started working at USM Research Lab, and I wasn't involved in anything. And you just can get in a hole like that. And I reached out to my friend Katie Widows, and I was like, is there anything I can get involved in? And she was like, I think you'd be great in junior auxiliary. And I'm like, what is that? I've never heard of it. Never heard of it. I've heard of like junior league in New Orleans, but never this. And so that's how I got into junior auxiliary. But I think, going back to your question, what gets people involved, I think it's the fact of the end of the day, if you can say to yourself, I've made my community a better place. Not necessarily you, but I've helped a team make this better. Especially like bringing a daughter into the world, you think, am I doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, to where when she gets older, she can say, my parents did this. My parents wanted me to have a better life, not just me, but the community around me that were going to be supporting me and mentoring me eventually.
Right.
Am I going to be doing that too? Because I feel like my parents had a lot of expectations for me. My parents both worked at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College for over 25 years. And I mean, they were heavily involved. And so for me, I felt that same expectation. So for the kids who don't have that, that's why Boys and Girls Club is so important, because the mentorship, like you said, I think it's becoming into a light to where it's going to be a part of curriculum now, hopefully, to where, these teachers are seeing these things and have the resources to reach out to someone and say, hey, this person's really interested in this, and I think it would be great for you to link up with this kid.
Interesting. So connecting the philanthropy with the actual education system and matching kids up with that.
Yes.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's because once again, I feel like mentorship is becoming, you read it in leadership books, it's like, it's very important. But now I feel like I'm reading studies, and it's becoming more, especially on LinkedIn, like the power of mentorship, especially within women on women mentorship. I mean, it's just the impact that it makes, and it not only helps the mentee, but the person doing the mentoring. I mean, because you can't put yourself first anymore. You got to think about somebody else. Yeah. And that's hard to do.
Sure.
I every day battling that. Every day. So that's what I think.
I don't know if you're familiar with Ayn Rand. Do you know who that is? She's a philosopher, a 20th century philosopher who had a philosophy called objectivism. And it's that the pursuit of your self-interest is a moral good and a moral necessity. Bear with me.
I'm listening.
Okay. So I would explain objectivism with philanthropy by saying you might be doing it because you get to impact community. And again, I'm just explaining this. I'm not saying this is the way you feel, but if you feel good about it and you continue to do it because it makes you feel good, then it's a self-interest.
Absolutely agree.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's how I felt from it. Honestly, like it was good when I would do nonprofit work. I felt good about doing it, but what I really felt good about was the way it made me feel.
Right.
Like I'm glad I can impact you.
That's right.
But like the primary thing, if I'm 100% honest, I liked how I felt doing that.
But I think there's a time to where those two things become one, to where you're doing this for the community. And, when you first start out, you feel good about yourself. You're like, look at me helping the community. There's a Seinfeld episode where he's like talking to himself and he's like, look at me, look at what I've done. And then he goes, shut up. And I think about that a lot. But I feel like the more that you do and the more it becomes second nature, the more that you realize like it makes you feel good, but that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, and and also once you get past that point of maybe having this realization, if it is a realization, who cares?
Truly.
Who cares?
Who cares?
You know, just like you're doing it. It's good for you. It's good for them.
Right.
Who cares?
That's right. And I think the thing that kills me the most is, you know, Junior Auxiliary, the women that we have are powerhouses. Truly. I mean,
is this an all
women? All
okay,
women. 100 women. 100 women.
Is
from
that
Biloxi-Ocean Springs, D'Iberville, St. Martin.
It just landed on that number, if that's what it has to be, or what?
It depends. You can kind of create your own numbers depending on, it's almost like supply and demand. So we got to 100 because of the projects we were doing, and you know, you had to fix that in your constitution and stuff like that. So we feel like 100 women, that's enough for us.
Yeah.
We feel like, you know, but there's some chapters that just have, you know, 20 or 10. I mean, it just depends. Okay. But when you have these women come together and you get these ideas, and you just, because a lot of them are teachers. A lot of them, like I said, we are with CASA, you know, the foster kids, or in the medical profession, where they know that, oh, Junior Auxiliary is a resource now, and I can pass that on. So I feel like now, hopefully the word of mouth is getting to the people it needs to get to, which it always has. But now, you know, there's so many other options out there for nonprofits. So rather than us sticking it by ourselves, let's team up with them. Let's host a food drive with them, or let's do Angel Tree with them, or, you know, the special needs organization, we do their Halloween dance with them. I mean, that's a blast. That's easy stuff to do.
I think initiatives like One Coast help that as well.
Sure.
You know, like it says, look, these are not just this city's problems. This is a coastal thing, because people experience it. Very few people come down to the Gulf Coast and stay in one city.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? So they're going to travel all over. So we should be mutually invested in one another.
And I think having the chambers, not just the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce, but, you know, Hancock County and Jackson County and Ocean Springs, like all working together, it kind of just shows like, you know, we all offer different things and some similar things, but we come together as one coast at the end of the day. We're all trying to make a difference, you know, to make our businesses better, to provide them with the resources, to provide them with those contacts. So I think you're right.
What does it mean for you to be in this organization that's just full of women?
Refreshing.
Okay.
Very refreshing.
How so?
For many reasons, you know, you go through life, especially as a woman, and you deal with a lot of things, whether it's, and I think I'm not speaking for all women, but a lot of times you feel like you have to do everything 100 times harder. You have to do everything to just prove that what you're doing is the right thing to do. And it's oftentimes really hard to find that voice in a crowd where you're dismissed pretty easily, you know, and that starts in elementary school. That starts in middle school. At least it did for me. So being in a room full of women to where each voice, you know that you can say something completely outlandish that I might not agree with, but I'm going to listen to you. And I'm definitely going to bring it to the table. To know that what you say is just being brought to other people, that's what's refreshing.
I'd say also you get to vacate the possibility of there being some sort of the gender being a distraction. Mm-hmm. Like you get to throw that out. Like that's to me about like
what do you mean, like a distraction?
So if like, for example, if you're trying to bring up an idea, and maybe if you're in a group of men and men don't like the idea, you have to contend with, okay, was it actually a good idea, or was it because a woman said it? That's what I mean. You get to throw one of those out like that.
Exactly.
So that leads to productive things and
very productive things.
So
very productive.
And of course, like any organization that has some sort of meaningful moral foundation, and in this case, being productive as women for the pursuit of the community. As women, we're going to bring this to our community. That helps an organization in a major way.
You're absolutely right. And I think the thing that, you know, the thing that really bothers me about when, you know, people say they work with women is the emotional aspect of it. They're all emotional, or they do things with emotion. And what's the problem with that?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying but it's still something that you have to battle. You know, do I think that
should you just be careless and view things from just a purely secular view? And
depending on where you're at, But I think going back to what you said about like, why is it so important for Junior Auxiliary to be women? It's because we need that balance. There's going to be some women who can be the analytical thinkers that don't really need that side. And then you have the side that can be the emotional side and say, well, what if we did it like this? And, then you have those people that are like, well, we don't have the numbers for that. You're like, I definitely hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times, like, especially in the professional world, we lose that emotional aspect. And I don't think we should. I'm not saying that we should turn the volume up on it. I'm saying I don't see the problem in being yourself, as long as being yourself is professional and you have that emotion aspect of it to where you can show your passion and you're not dismissed for it, or you're not discredited because, oh, it's too much. She's too much.
I prefer working with women.
Sure.
I've always preferred that. I've always preferred to be subordinate to a woman. I've always preferred to be like if I had to pick, women have always balanced me out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I can move way too quickly and irrationally at some, I need to have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. Women are generally more organized. You know what I mean? So where I also speak in a passionate way.
Right.
And so that speaks, I think, to women, because if we can presuppose that maybe women are more emotional, again, what's the problem with that? For me, it works. It works for me because I communicate in that way.
But I think the thing is like, for us, and once again, I'm not obviously speaking for all women, but I think as, an individual, when you hear these biases and you say, what in the world? You can either accept that that's what they are, or you can just embrace them and say, yeah, you might think that, but let me show you why it's important for me to act this way, or for me to be myself. I've had evaluations and stuff like that where they're like, you come on a little strong. I certainly do.
About things that are meaningful.
Right. About things that are meaningful. I certainly do. Mm-hmm. And, if I'm going somewhere and I'm doing something, I want people to know I know exactly what I'm talking about, And if that has an emotional aspect of it, I'm not going to cry. I learned my lesson from that. But, I think it can only help us to embrace those things. You can definitely say that about me, but let me show you why it's a strength instead. And I think being in a room full of women to where you see, somebody standing behind a podium, a woman standing behind the podium, or a woman leading these projects, or a woman volunteering over 120 hours of an entire year from May to April of her time. This woman I'm talking about has 3 kids. 3 children, and she's volunteering like that. If she can do it, certainly I can. Yeah. Certainly I can. So, but just being in a room with people who just motivate you, that's what's refreshing, whether they're women or not. You just get a breath of fresh air sometimes. And that's what I feel like we need. And it maybe have lost in COVID because you weren't with those people anymore. And I don't know about you, but if, Zoom, it's just, woo.
It's certainly not the same for me.
No.
There's been a number of interviews that I've wanted to do over Zoom, and every single time, I just can't do it. I need this, I need to sit in front of somebody.
Especially with you, this is the more important thing. But with us, at the chamber, that's all we had was Zoom. Yeah, that's all we had. That's all the only way we can communicate with people, and especially, we worked remote from March to I think August. And for us, it was we were having to do stuff every day just to show people we're still here. Please use us. Don't just dismiss it away. Yeah. Let's all work together and figure out how we're going to do this. And Zoom was a huge part of that. But now that we're getting back into it, I'm hoping that we can just kind of phase it out.
Well, and there's probably going to be a movement away from the dependence on technology and the conduct of business. However, early on, many businesses shifted and opened up an entire market that they didn't realize existed through pickup orders and things of that nature.
That's right. So, and thank God they did.
Yeah.
Because I've been using the heck out of them. I'll say that for sure. But I think it goes back to the adaptability of it all, and with Zoom, you definitely had that adaptability aspect to where if you couldn't go to something that day because you couldn't make the travel time, well, I'll just tune in on Zoom. So I can definitely see us keeping hybrid things, but you definitely miss the connection. Especially if you're listening to a speaker or a CEO that comes in and is dedicating their time to this and you don't have the option to actually meet them in person.
Well, it's definitely been great that you guys have done that. You've had some real talents on there through your Zoom meetings, and there's one coming up today. Today's the 14th?
That's right.
14th. Is it Danielle or Danielle?
Diana Scrimetti. Diana Scrimetti.
Yeah. So she's going to come in there and talk about imposter syndrome.
She is. That was one of the last events that I was prepping for, I think.
Okay.
And then we have the lottery coming June 10th, I think.
The lottery?
No, sorry. The Mississippi Gaming Commission. We already had the lottery. Right. Mississippi Gaming Commission. But yes, she actually used to work for the chamber.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, you've got a lot of great resources on there, and I wanted to go to watch that one because I think that I feel like I kind of have some of that because especially
absolutely.
after the election, like the fact that people wanted to come on the show and this was just like a hobby, like I was like, this is weird.
And now you're a resource.
I guess, yeah.
No,
yeah.
truly, because I messaged, we Junior Auxiliary has a bunch of WhatsApps, and each group, anyways, I messaged our PR committee for the campaign that we're having this for 90 days. We'll talk about, but I said, I'm going on Brian Belford's Shop and Chivalry podcast, and somebody responded, I love that podcast. I mean, like immediately. And I was like,
wow,
great. So you should know like that, like people like are listening and like using you as that resource, especially with all the people the candidates you've had coming on. And I mean,
it's so great to hear, honestly.
True.
Scares me to death.
It scares you to death?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Because it's like, and it's something that I know is a good thing. But it's like, I feel a weight to some degree because now it's like, okay, people enjoy this. I need to make sure I get it right.
I can see that.
So like early on I was like, nah, good enough, but like I spend a lot more time in editing now and making sure everything's
you poor
good
thing.
to go. And I'm trying to schedule properly because before I was like, hey, are you busy?
Hey.
You want to come talk to me? It's kind of like with Ben, like, I told him like, you want to come? We can have some beers, whatever you want.
I hope y'all did. I mean,
no,
y'all didn't.
Well,
he would taste Jameson on the rocks though. So
okay, all right. Well, we should have him in for this, but
we will definitely come in and talk about how opposites attract for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be a blasty blast for sure.
Poor thing probably couldn't get a word in. So, but at least I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And now I had a teacher in grad school tell me one time, because once again, I come off kind of strong or, kind of passionate. And she said, before you answer a question, why don't you wait 10 seconds and see if anybody else does? I'm like, I hear you. However.
So the first time you did that though, because I'm sure you tried it, how long was that 10 seconds though?
I may have counted to 10, but internally the clock was an hour.
Yeah,
At minimum an hour. And I did it and nobody answered. And I'm like, this is exactly why I'm doing it, because I cannot sit in a stale classroom.
Yeah.
I never have. And I had this teacher at Gulf Coast, Jason Shows. He was a history teacher, and he would give you extra credit if you read your paper out loud. And I did. Every time. And my friend Travis, do you know Travis Martino by any chance?
I don't think I do.
He's the best, but he would get so irrationally angry with me that I would read my papers at the end of class for extra credit because it was lunchtime every single time. So that's what I think about when I'm like, you know what? Wait 10 seconds. No, I think I'll get the extra credit and read it out loud. No, I'm going to get the extra credit. And I won the history award that year. So
you won the history award.
Oh yeah.
What's the history award?
I was his favorite, I'm sure. In class.
Okay. Got
Something
it.
like that. Or it had the best papers, surely. An oral presentation every Friday, Maybe I was just the most engaged. Who knows?
Probably
so.
Probably definitely that.
And I have no regrets about that.
No regret.
What's up? My next feature, because this is my last year in Junior Auxiliary, I'm really thinking about branching out and just creating my own music and, You can edit that out.
I won't.
I just wanted to see your face. I wanted to see if your lips pursed together, and they did. I will tell you, I was in a few musicals. They weren't that great for me, but I tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely tried. My parents told me I had a good singing voice, and then you listen to the recording and you say, God bless them.
We met potential.
I love that. I'm taking that. I am taking that. I might get it tattooed even.
Yeah.
I might. But, the work, like I said, especially with women, because, I've been working since I was 18 and I've only had 2 women bosses.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And throughout my time from kindergarten through college, I've only actually had 2 black professors. So I was thinking about that the other day, and they just happen to be black women. So
interesting.
Very. And I don't know if that's like a Southern thing or if like other people have experienced that. Like, what did you notice anything? I mean, like, did you have any male teachers at school besides like your football coach who obviously probably taught history?
All my football coaches were white. My basketball coaches were white. I think that says more about Ocean Springs.
And once again, like maybe that's just like the demographic you're in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I got my master's degree in higher education with an emphasis in student affairs, meaning that I wanted to work in a college setting and I wanted to work with developing college students age 18 through however old, even non-traditional students. And a lot of that, you have to do a lot of self-reflecting and understanding your biases. So when you're, trying to develop these students, you understand like what your biases are and confronting them and trying to understand why they're there. And so my teacher asked me how many Black women had ever taught me. And she was Black. And I said, just one. And it was an elective class. So
there's a racial disparity report that came out for the Air Force, and it highlighted that there's disparity in lots of things, from the way Article 15s are given out, Article 32 court-martial hearings, the way Blacks are less likely to take advantage of educational opportunities within the Air Force, which will lead to them being promoted. And those are the ones that are really interested to me, because there's obviously no race requirement for that. It's purely on, do you meet the qualifications? You can go. That's it. And so it seems to me that they're not willing to take the opportunity to do that. And this exists on the enlisted side versus the obviously more educated officer side.
Sure.
And when you say that you've never had, or you've only had two Black professors, right? I hear that, and I want to come to the same conclusion that I came, or what I think might be the cause of these individuals in the military not taking advantage of those opportunities, and that it's an institutional thing, and an institution that's been predominantly white, and they've been raised to not trust institutions. And so why then would they trust the institution that would give them the trappings that the institution says it will? You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is that it could be the case that the professors don't want to work at a predominantly white school. They'd rather go to like place where the race is not an issue. Exactly. So again, just a passing thought. I'm not sure, but.
And I see that too. But I do think you're right. And I think that's why, like, organizations like the Legacy Business League and things of that nature are so important, because it shows the representation of like these powerful people, and especially like the kids, like, at the Boys and Girls Club and stuff, they come in and we, they talk to them about, getting jobs and like just mentoring them and just, and just having that representation. Cause I know for me, I mean, I thought it was Ariel for the longest time, the mermaid.
Okay.
And, and then you look back and you see Tiana was the first Black princess, and for a majority of the movie, she's a frog.
Oh, no, I didn't. Wait, what?
From Princess and the Frog? Tiana?
I don't think I've seen that one.
A fantastic movie, but once again, the first Black Disney princess, and for, I would say, 90% of the movie, she's a frog. And not a Black woman, but.
Odd.
Yes, but.
How much stock should we put into that as a children's movie? Like, is there, like, a honest question?
Okay.
Honest question. Like, it is a kid's movie. Is that indicative of something greater in your opinion?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. I mean, I had a fantastic childhood, truly. But a lot of my stuff, like my memories, come from, being represented almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like seeing these movies and relating to them, I couldn't imagine not seeing myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, that African-American children don't see themselves in those, but could you imagine the impact that in like 1991, it would have been to have a Black Disney princess the entire time on a movie instead of, a redheaded one, even though I was very happy about that.
Right.
But still, I do think, because they play pretend all the time. Like yesterday, my nephew, Clayton, he was filling up his fake car with fake gas at daycare.
Where do you find it? I hear they're out everywhere.
I know, right? We were like, did he hear about the gas shortage and like in passing?
Yeah. Was he pouring it in the plastic bag?
And putting it in his truck and then getting in a car crash.
Yeah.
But the kids, he got hit in the nose by one of these kids that were playing superheroes. So, I mean, like, they know. And I was like, they're 4 years old and they know what superheroes are. I mean, and duh. But at the same time, like, they see themselves in those characters. How many people would it have changed if in the 90s and even in the early 2000s there would have been more Black representation on kids shows and, you know, kids movies, especially a kids Disney princess movie.
I don't deny that. Well, I don't deny any of that. Obviously, it's. I guess when this question comes up for me, I think about the beautiful thing about children is that they don't understand that at some point down the road, society might organize them in terms of the way they look, which is out of their control.
Sure.
They don't see that. They see an individual. That's my buddy. That's my friend. You know, the only thing they see is like girls and boys. Oh, you got cooties, that sort of thing. My experience. But like when I was younger, I remember this. I remember being in 7th grade and I was sitting at a lunch table. I know exactly where we're sitting. Everybody that was around, there was a Black kid, there was an Hispanic kid, and then white kids. And one of the white kids asked if any of us were going to Black Spring Break. And it's the first time I'd ever heard of it, right? And even the Black kid was like, no, I'm not going to that, you know? Like, and we're in 7th grade, like we don't know anything about this sort of thing. Like, and we just think like, okay, well, maybe this could be fun, you know? But again, it was never really a thing where, it's not that we couldn't see race. We weren't conscious of the topic of race as being some sort of oppressive thing.
I feel like we weren't.
Sure.
But from experience and like talking to my friends, I mean, they were.
Are you just regardless of race? Like,
I guess it just depends. You know, we talked earlier about maybe it's just a demographic thing of the city you're in where you're all white teachers. But I definitely think that race begins extremely early where you can identify that. Extremely early.
Yeah, I wonder. I'd certainly like to do some more reading on it, but I don't know. It certainly seems right. It certainly seems plausible for sure.
The thing is, though, like you know, we're talking about this, and the whole time we're talking, I'm like, my experiences will never compare, and what I've experienced I'll never understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, I think realizing your race as a white person is completely different than realizing that as a Black person or even Hispanic.
It's a process that everybody goes through, but they're different processes.
It's very different.
Obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
And even talking about it, you're kind of like, should I be talking about this? Do I even have the authority to talk about this?
Look, this is probably the second or third time out of the 30 some odd episodes that I've had where race has come up.
Sure.
And every time, like, I do want to say it's odd that 2 white people are talking about this.
No, I have this conversation a lot.
Yeah.
I am very comfortable in the uncomfortable of talking about race and identifying, and this is going to probably trigger some people, my white privilege. I'm fully aware of that, especially. It goes back to college too. You know, I identify as a feminist. I do.
Okay.
And I've had to write papers on that. And I had a professor push me and say, "Are you just looking through the lens of a white woman?" And that was the first time that I'd ever identified feminism through race too. I'm like, I didn't even think about that. That was like 23 or something.
Well, when you were writing the paper, were you writing with the intention of talking about all women? Because in the context of just feminism,
sure,
though you're not talking about any specific race, you're talking from a perspective that transcends all races.
Exactly.
Because feminism does, right? Because a woman, a Hispanic woman.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and I think that's what turns papers into books.
Is when you expand to the different perspectives. Oh,
exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, especially after leaving grad school, you're like, there are so many different facets of this. There are so many different lenses of this.
Yeah.
Of the things that I didn't even touch on. And I could have said so much more. I mean, I got A's, but at the same time, I think at the end of the day, like you're still saying like, you could have done more. Maybe that goes back to the nonprofit stuff where you're like, you could have like said more, even though nobody's reading that. And you're just, you know, like doing it to understand yourself, but still, you know, but no, 2 white people talking about this stuff. I think important's not the right word, but I think it's okay Because I mean, we understand like what we're talking about, and we, understand. I think especially from
as
nonprofit
far as we
community,
know, we can understand
exactly.
Yeah.
From our experiences,
Yeah.
I literally only speak for me most of the time.
Right.
So especially coming from a place where we are servicing all children. Every single child, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of how they identify, like it does not matter. It doesn't matter. And I think at the end of the day, to understand those biases and to understand, like, especially what you went through as a child, and understanding that.
Well, I've tried to make this show something where we can have those talks. The whole point of the bottom word,
true.
Chivalry, is being able to embark and confront these kind of dark topics with the strength to get through them properly.
Right.
With resolve, but with respect of the individual and the ideas that are actually presented. So I definitely try to make it a place where that can happen. I tell people the only time I think I may have felt racism is on the basketball court. Oh. And that's just, it's a common thing. Any white guy who's ever like tried to really compete in basketball, you go into a gym, there's 10 people playing back and forth, four people on the court. You walk in, you find the guy who's the team captain for the next game, like, hey, can I run with you?
Right.
As your fifth. And they go, no, I'm going to pull somebody off the court. Right? So what do they do in that moment? But judge me by the way I look. Now, I'm a decent basketball player. All right. And then, of course, what ends up happening is like some guy comes in the gym that's out of shape. He's black. They pick him up. I get it. I don't like it. Okay. But I'm angry in that moment. Very, very angry. And I'm hoping that team wins because I'm going to get on court and I'm going to punish that guy. So that's my perspective for the way that he made me feel.
Sure.
So when I hear things, and Obama put it into perspective following the Trayvon Martin tragedy, where he said things like, he could have been my son, or the thing that put it into perspective for me was, I know what it's like to walk through the parking lot of a grocery store and hear lock as I walk by.
Greg.
I know. But that's the reality for somebody. And it's that imagery, I think that at least for me connects with me.
Sure.
But I'll also say that you can't talk about Mississippi history without having the discussion about black and white.
Absolutely not.
It's not possible.
It's not.
From Wade-ins on the Gulf Coast to the story of 12 Oaks here in Ocean Springs. I mean, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's, as nonprofit organizations, you have to understand that. You have to understand, the race theory of it all, really. Because, I mean, you really do encounter every single child that you come in contact with has a completely different story. Like I said earlier, we have some that's like, it's very like happy-go-lucky, and we don't dive into that. And then we have others where, we're asking these kids like to confront like whether or not they've experienced abuse or whether they've encountered these types of interactions. So
there's a documentary on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it. You might know what I'm talking about, but it was an Hispanic child that teachers reported that he was abused and everything. He ended up being locked in like a cupboard and whatnot, abused to the point where like he had broken ribs, everything else, and just link after link in the Department of Children's Services out there.
Yes, I know exactly what documentary you're talking about.
Yeah, tragic,
awful, disgusting.
Yeah. What role does a nonprofit play in preventing something like that? I guess it's a tough question because they would have to have access, right?
And they don't.
Yeah. But maybe the idea of linking the nonprofit to the school system might be an avenue.
Linking the nonprofit to the school system, which we do through what we call school aid. So if a counselor comes in contact with a child or even a parent who needs clothes, we have $100 per student. We'll buy them underwear, backpacks, T-shirts, pants, uniforms, whatever they need, we cover it. That's one avenue. And then, I talked earlier about how us working with, the kids in court care with CASA, with the advocates, we don't really interact with the kids except on adoption day. Where we have this like huge party with cake and, these kids get adopted, we get to interact with them. But other than that,
amazing.
But a lot of this stuff, I was asking about percentages in Jackson County and, for foster care. And a lot of that they couldn't give me because of confidentiality stuff, like even percentages. So
wow. Okay.
It is difficult, but these community resources that are offering to these students by allowing us to work with them, Like that, I think that just helps us realize like who's in our community. Because, I mean, all of us, every single woman in there has the opportunity and the accessibility to, help in some way and are not in that position most of the time of the children that we're helping. So I think for us, being able to step out and see that some of these kids are going through that is what we need. Because I wouldn't experience that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Certainly not. I live right by Biloxi Upper Elementary, and then like Nativity is like 2 blocks away. I mean, I wouldn't see any of that on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. But these teachers would. These counselors would.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely what that documentary highlights, and I wish I knew what it was called.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. It's his name.
Yes.
His name is the documentary.
I think so. Yeah. Anyway, these teachers kept on reporting it, and it's one of those things where I think you need to do a better job of actually taking it seriously and investigating. And of course, one of the things that was troubling is the counselors were calling the mom, and the mom was saying, no, it's fine. He got into a fight or whatever. You need to consider the fact that it's in their best interest to get you away from seeing the child. So then you should build a system, I think, on the presupposition that they're going to do their best to deter you, and you need to do your best to actually see that child and put eyes on the child.
But I think the protocols in place for teachers is to contact, not CASA, but
no, I mean the Department of Children's Services. They just made phone calls. Like I think they made one house call, 1 or 2 house calls.
And
yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about. I don't think they just went in the living room or something like that.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
didn't do the whole house. Yeah. And there's no telling what's lurking behind that closed door.
And they didn't document properly, all that stuff.
No, and I mean that brings us back to what happened a few days ago with that little kid getting in the police fire.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and then 3 days after that, 2 people arrested in Saussure for felony child abuse of a 3-month-old.
Heard about that one too.
I mean, but this is people are like, it's awful, but it's happening. It's still happening. Mm-hmm. A 3-month-old.
Yeah. Well, if we can move to the chamber.
Let's move.
Okay.
Let's move.
Let's move the chamber here. So, first of all, why is there a Gulf Coast chamber when each city has their own chamber of commerce? Like, why does that exist? What's
From my understanding, it happened after Hurricane Katrina.
Okay.
It was the Biloxi chamber. Mm-hmm. And after Hurricane Katrina, obviously, the coast was kind of wrecked. So they brought in the others, Pass Christian, Long Beach, and Gulfport, and just decided to do one. The board of the directors, let's make it one.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure when the other chambers are founded, so I can't really speak for them. But, we have people that are a part of every chamber, and then we have some that are just a part of ours. So we all offer different things, but, the same too sometimes.
I gotcha. So what's the role of a chamber of commerce?
So the mission of the Mississippi Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce, which I think really sums up what a chamber of commerce is to connect, inform, advocate, and develop for all businesses that are part of our chamber, obviously. So connecting you with the businesses that'll help you, or with the people that'll help you get above, and then informing you of things that are coming out of different legislation. We have a pre-legislative briefing next week coming up where, we ask them questions about different legislation, what they talked about, the post, different kinds of stuff. And then advocating. So like we advocated for the state flag to change. So we do that not on behalf of the businesses, but just showing like that's the chamber's support. And the BP oil spill, we had a big deal with that. So that's kind of like the advocacy part of it. And the developing, which is where I kind of come in with the events to really help shape you as a professional, whether that's like helping you learn like crazy Excel stuff, or understanding like search engine optimization, or getting connected with women educating, enriching, and engaging, where you're around these other women entrepreneurs.
Engaging a generation, millennials and Gen Z. I think I saw that video on there too.
Yes. And we have, it was marketing to Generation Z.
That's what it was.
And that was interesting. If you're wanting to market it to Generation Z, you go on Instagram.
Yeah.
Don't bother with Facebook.
Fair enough.
Which is understandable because, Facebook is for the olds now, I guess.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. I did a presentation at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College for their leadership conference, and it was about social media etiquette. And I talked about four social media channels. I talked about Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, because they don't know what LinkedIn is and they need one. And I was like, so which one do you use most often? And they were like, Snapchat. I was like, y'all still use Snapchat? They're like, yes, it's like messaging and stuff. And I said, I had no idea. Every single one of them said that they use Snapchat all the time. And that's when I felt old.
Wow.
That is when I felt old.
It's so much to keep up with.
I don't have the energy for that anymore.
Yeah, I've thought about hiring somebody to handle the social media for the podcast.
Do it if you have the capability.
Yeah,
why not?
yeah.
Take some of that stress off you. And maybe that'll help with some of the scaries with being a resource for Ocean Springs now.
I don't know. I gotta expand. I gotta move out.
Next stop, Biloxi.
Yeah, I'm just gonna slowly permeate all the cities. But
If anybody could do it, it's you.
you think?
Absolutely.
Oh, man, I appreciate that.
100%.
We'll see.
I mean, like what you said, you started out as a hobby, and now look at you. I mean,
it's still a hobby. It's just a more well-known hobby.
A more well-known hobby, but you're also learning something new every single day.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, all this has been kind of self-taught, and I've gotten. So there's another guy I got to start a podcast, and so he's been doing that in Korea. Actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
You've gone international now.
Yeah, no big deal.
What's his Chivalry shop?
So his last name is John Taishu, spelled Tisue, right?
Okay.
And so I came up with his name, and it was, I think it's.
I'm ready for it. Let me hear.
Have a Taishu podcast, like have a tissue.
Brian, you would.
Yeah.
You would. And how's that going for him?
Really well, actually. Really well.
So who does he have on?
So he does primarily military. So senior leaders.
Oh,
in the military.
nice.
Yeah. So he's been doing pretty well.
And how's Korea with the COVID stuff?
I actually have not talked to him about that. I'd be kind of curious because I think Korea was pretty strict initially, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
They got it under control, right?
They were one of the ones that we were like, oh, we should have done that.
Yeah, we should.
We should have done that. But I got my vaccine yesterday, my first one.
Okay.
Me and Ben both.
Nice.
And I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, my arm.
Were you having to wait because of the pregnancy?
I did wait for the pregnancy because when they started the trials on the pregnant women, I was in month 7 and I was like, I'm just not gonna. I have 2 more months.
Yeah, that's how it
So I talked to a pediatrician and he was like, yeah, go ahead, because I'm breastfeeding too. So he was like, you'll be transferred to her.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And if she becomes a mutant, I hope it's Mystique.
It's Mystique?
I hope so. She's like the best one, right? Or Storm. I really like Storm too.
Yeah, I was a fan of the Nightcrawler.
Ew.
Yeah.
Just why?
Being able to move from place to place.
I guess.
Yeah, he could like see somewhere he wants.
Right. Oh yeah. I get it now.
So, do you remember the first X-Men movie?
Are we talking about like the X-Men with Patrick Stewart? Are we talking about? Okay. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So do you remember that scene where they're in the place where Wolverine got like his claws done and all that stuff, and then they've got children down in like a basement area?
Yes.
Okay. There's a scene where it's Storm and somebody else, and they're in there with the kids, and the camera's facing like you'd be Storm, I'd be the other person. The camera is facing just like this. Sure. There's a shadow right here. He's standing right there. You can see his eyes.
No.
You can see his eyes, and he's supposed to be up top. They got the filmography wrong. Yeah, I promise you need to go.
I gotta go watch.
Yeah.
Well, number one, I love Patrick Stewart.
Okay.
So
I can't believe he wasn't in Harry Potter. If there's any person,
a travesty.
Yeah.
An absolute travesty.
Yeah, for sure.
He could have been anything. I don't care what he would have been.
Yeah.
I mean,
what's a better well-known Brit that
besides Maggie?
I don't know who Maggie is.
What, Professor McGonagall.
Oh yeah. She is pretty well known too. But the Spice Girls are probably the most famous Brits.
Well, used to be. Now it's Meghan and Harry. And Archie.
Yeah.
And whatever the little girl's gonna be.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But Ryan, I have to talk about the Junior Auxiliary campaign we're having though.
Yes. I'm sorry.
They'll
Please
kill
do.
me.
Yeah.
They'll kill me. Yeah. Because I was like, when we were talking just then, I was like, oh my God, I haven't said one reason of how we're able to fund any of these projects.
You did say that you're doing this 90-day campaign,
yes.
right? And then I thought, okay, great. I know we have to talk about that. So, and then we talked about.
But I like how our minds both work on a timeline.
Yeah, for sure.
We get it.
Yeah.
So it's normally if this was a regular year and COVID didn't absolutely just destroy the world and everything we knew about it, we would usually host what we call a gala for the kids. And it would be at the Beau Rivage, and it's like this huge spectacle. We sell out all these tables. We have a great night, dancing, food, and we talk about, our projects, and we have a silent auction and stuff like that. Couldn't do that this year because the Beau Rivage, they're just now getting back to where they're having stuff again. So we said, well, what can we do? So our finance chairman, Lauren Johnston, she works over the aquarium. Okay. She said, let's do like a 90-day campaign. And each of us will have like our own donation page, almost like our own GoFundMe. And you can donate to that page, but it's all of your, I think it's the easiest way to describe it is, you know, what can I do to make sure that my money is going back to the children in this community rather than donating to some major nonprofits? You know, this goes directly to the children. So I mentioned earlier with school aid, you know, for $100, if you donate $100, that goes to one student to provide them uniforms, underwear, toothbrush, backpack, things that they don't have because they're either displaced or they just moved here. Which reminds me of a little testimonial. I did a school aid purchase one time and we actually dropped them off to the school. We never meet the kids or the parent. And, you know, I was just asking, does she need anything else? Like shoes, anything like that? I'll purchase it out of my own pocket. And the girl was telling me that they were living in a house that was above the ground and that they were being slowly electrocuted through their floor. And they had no idea.
What?
Yes. Slowly, the girl kept getting sick and sick. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Something about the way the wiring was set up, it was coming through the floor. So every time they would step on the floor, they were being slowly electrocuted. Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard?
Well, yeah, for sure. And knowing about electricity, I'm very interested.
I know nothing about electricity.
Okay.
But when she told me this, floored, I said, what? And they were like, yeah, she's, you know, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Slowly being electrocuted. I don't know how that works.
No, I mean, I don't know what's conductive on the ground. I mean, what type of flooring is conductive?
Listen, I was so agooped that I literally heard that and I said, does she need new shoes? Does she need a carpet? Or does that make it worse with the socks?
Like,
I don't know. What do you do?
The floor's not lava. The floor's electricity, and you're like, we can't.
But what is
worse? Like your suggestion of the shoes is like, you know, obviously can't do anything about that. Like what?
I mean,
fixing that's a non-starter. So we just go with the shoes.
I mean. But
she's get them LA lights because they'll get real bright.
But that's how you test it.
That's it.
Let's get them the lighted ones. They step on the floor. If it lights up, we know.
I looked for these shoes recently.
Did you?
Yeah, LA lights. Trying to find some light. Look, I figure if all these styles, they did all these styles, but they weren't the LA Gear ones. All these styles are coming back in. I thought, would somebody even blink an eye if high school kids are wearing mullets now?
I know.
Me walking around with some light up shoes, is that weird?
The mullets are coming back, and the Aquanut hair for women is going to come back.
Yeah. I walked out of TatoNet when it was still open, and I was walking in the car, and I kept looking at this high school kid, and I'm sitting in the car with the wife, and I'm about to turn the car on. I'm like, I need to tell that kid how good his mullet looks. I mean, I was literally like in awe of how good it. Ooh, what was that? Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that me? Is it because of that light blinking? Are we being slowly electrocuted through the floor, Brian?
No, but that's some interference. Here, let me turn that off.
What if that kid was being haunted by a ghost that is now following me? And now they're
trying to... I love everything you're saying.
I know. Do I believe it? No.
Should we break out the Ouija board? I don't have one.
Well, then why would you?
Listen.
Luckily, no.
I've been keeping this around. Been trying to dabble in the dark arts.
Just because I'm like, what if?
So I did.
And?
So I did it, and I was in I know I was in middle school, and I was being watched. I was being babysat. Yeah, being watched. I was like, sorry. What? Phrasing, Brian. Phrasing. Okay. So, anyway, she broke it out, just had it in her car.
Your babysitter did?
Yeah.
That's pretty good for her.
And so we go moving around, and it's going in circles, right? And she told me, it's like, okay, so you have to go in circles, and then it just stops. And it stopped. And then she's like, ask a question. And I said, are you real? And it moved over to yes. And I pulled my hands off. I was like, I got like,
I'm not trying to get possessed.
I teared up. Like it freaked me out. And to this day, I'm like, well, she was probably actually just moving.
But you can't confirm that.
Can't confirm. Cannot confirm.
You cannot confirm that.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. So I did that.
See, I don't have the best luck. So I just feel like if I ever used one, I would just be asking for it. Absolutely asking for it. We literally talked about demon possession, me and Ben and his sister yesterday. So the fact that this is coming up again, I'm like,
Well, what was that conversation like? We don't have to get into it.
Well,
What
I'll
else
tell you
about
after, 'cause it's-
yeah. Well, tell me more about this.
the campaign.
Yeah, about the campaign.
So that's how we fund all these projects that are like super important. You know, I talked about our I Matter project, which is our child welfare, which is the one that the national organization requires you to have a child welfare project. So we take on 5 families. And like I said, we help them with their finances, like help them balance the books, help them with their homes. Do they need beds, jobs, interviewing skills, all that stuff. And I mean, we have a member for each family that stays in contact with them for 2 years, pretty much. So all the money that we gather from the community goes right back into the community, essentially. Because I know a lot of times, like, especially if you're like moving to Ocean Springs or even Biloxi, you know, you see these kids and you're like, how can I get back? What can I do? And it's literally as easy as going to jabos.org, JABOS.org, and you'll see a link for our campaign, or go to our Facebook page because it's all over that too. But we would love your help. We would love your support. It's 90 days. And we have different sponsorship levels too. Depending on how you sponsor, we're actually, you know, teamed up with Lamar Billboards to get a billboard.
Well, and a lot of people do sponsor.
Oh yeah,
your stuff. So,
yes.
You know, it's kind of, it almost seems like it might be kind of competitive.
I wouldn't say competitive because there's plenty of room from everybody now that we're not having to have tables anymore.
Yeah.
But it does make us feel, you know, it's kind of one of those things like you want to ask businesses to help you out after everything. And it's like, we need help though too. We do. We can't go another year without fundraising. We can't. I mean, it just wouldn't be sustainable. And I mean, we served over 13,000 kids. Imagine what we could do if we raised, you know, normally we raise about 120 to 150. If we even met our goal of 150 this year, which I'm fully aware that I fully think that we will, just because we are fired up about this. But I mean, that literally will fund 100% fund every single project, and we would not have to worry about whether or not our school aid funds would run out to where we would have to pay for clothes, which we would absolutely do if it came down to it. But that's just part of it.
Wow.
That's part of the things, you know, with a nonprofit, the fundraising comes with it. And I say that to say that we are very cognizant of the year that it's been for these businesses. And so us asking them for money kind of feels strange, but also kind of like, hey, you've always helped us. How can we help you? And if you give us this, we'll advertise on that. You know, just trying to figure out like what we can do. You know, like you talk about like you have people come on here. It's like a trade, you know, because you're learning stuff and they're coming on here to promote their stuff. That's kind of like what this is for us.
Oh, for sure.
You know, you give us money, and then if you see a kid at Ocean Springs, Biloxi, D'Iberville, St. Martin, Van Cleve, all these other places, Wool Market, wearing clothes, you probably bought those clothes.
So how can people? I think you said you're going to set up basically like a GoFundMe and.
Well, they're called campaign pages.
Okay.
And so if you know somebody in Junior Auxiliary, surely by now they've posted about their campaign page. But basically you click the link, and it's on our website too, JABOS, JABOS 2021.givesmart.com.
Okay.
So that's where you can go and like actually donate the money and like see like what we're doing and stuff. But each member has a campaign page to where they have goals set for themselves. So like if you want to raise $2,000, you can set that goal. It's kind of like a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're doing for that aspect. And, you know, then we still have the sponsorships to where, you know, we'll get t-shirts, logos, billboards, stuff like that. You know, just trying to figure out what can we do?
Yeah.
What can we do to say thank you for everything? Because, I mean, we've done so well in the past with fundraising. That's how we were able to go through 2020 like that. But I don't want to have to keep doing that.
Right. Well, what can I do?
What can you do?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to donate money?
I mean, I can do that. But
or
what about the show?
Absolutely. What do you want to do?
Well, what do y'all need?
I mean, talking about the campaign would be great.
Okay.
It's until the end of July. I almost said May, but my brain doesn't work anymore, obviously, because of the baby. I fully believe that she got all brain cells.
Talking to you today, I don't think that's the case, but
maybe 10%. Maybe 10%. But I mean, you can donate. I mean, little as, you know, $25 goes a long way. Because I mean, we do a lot of stuff to where, you know, I talked about the shelter a little bit. We provide crafts for them. So on Tuesdays, we'll bring a craft and we'll bring snacks. And Nukes generously donates the snacks every single Tuesday. So God bless them. But we have to pay for the crafts. That's $25. Right there.
Do y'all directly solicit from, say, Walmart or Sam's?
Yes.
And you get those things donated most of the time, or?
It just depends on what they can do. But like, so each member has to sign up for a business, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So then they can solicit from those businesses, because we don't want 5 people going to.
I see. Right. Okay.
The same person and asking for money. Like, it reminds me of like back in the day when you used to have to sell yearbook ads. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yep. That's exactly what this reminds me of. But like the same people would keep, like pour pizza in Wiggins,
Yeah.
which was like the place to go.
Yeah.
They always supported. But I mean, I'm sure they got hit up like 6 different times for yearbook
sure they
ads.
did, yeah.
And I'm sure they loved it because I mean, I'm sure we got a pizza buffet out of it.
Wiggins is blown up though.
Haven't we?
Because we went camping at Flint Creek, not last weekend, but the weekend prior.
I live right next door to Flint Creek. That's where my parents
you?
live.
Like on that same road?
So you know where Flint Creek is? The next road.
Okay,
There's a neighborhood like right to the left.
Gotcha.
And then we can walk in our backyard and there's the water park.
So there's a house before it on the left up on a hill. It
Yes,
used to have
on the right-hand side.
Left-hand side if you're going towards Flint Creek, and Flint Creek's on the left. It's on the
Right.
same side. And it's
It's a
up on a
cabin
hill.
store.
No. It's a house on a corner, and it used to have like an open bay garage. But now it has a garage door. I knew some lady that lived in there. Her name was Melanie Ladner.
I'm trying to think of this house. On the left.
Yeah.
Before the cabin store?
Yeah.
Okay. I know which house you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but that's my old stomping grounds.
yeah. Yeah. I love that place.
I would love for them to have a junior auxiliary because I feel like they would just rock it. I mean, I don't know if it would be 100 people, but
No, probably not. Well, not initially, but then again, it might surprise you because again, that area is kind of blown up.
it really has.
So.
You know, my mom and Ben's mom went up there, or Sulin, Ben's mom, came up there for a day, and she came back. She was like, "We went everywhere. We went to Jack's Plant and Patio. We went to Southern Pearls. We went and got coffee. I had the best day." And I'm like, if you would have said any of those names about 10, 15 years ago, I would not know what you're talking about.
Not
Wouldn't
a chance.
know.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Yeah, Wiggins was like, I mean, there was that burger place that was there.
Ward's.
Thank you. Yep. That, and then I'd go there for Perk Beach and Flint Creek, and that was
Oh,
it.
Perk Beach.
Yeah.
Man. Good time.
Good times.
I only went to Perk Beach when I was at Perk, and
Okay.
probably twice. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, it's just not the same when you live there.
I know.
Well, for Ocean Springs people, I mean, y'all go out in downtown a lot, even though you're from here, right?
Not really.
No? Okay, good. So it is the same, right?
Once in a while. Yeah. Well, I like going during the day or like early evening.
Yeah, that's a lot different than the nighttime scene.
Unfortunately, yeah, exactly, and that's what I don't want to kind of get around too much. And plus, they're starting to let people from the military come off base and go down there, and
You don't like that they're freeing them now? I mean, they couldn't even go home for Christmas, could they?
the couple times that like I've almost gotten in a fight downtown has been while I've been in the military, and there was some stupid military guy that was down there from Keesler there in training. Like one
Trying to meet a wife.
something. Yeah, I guess. But like my wife's cousin one time was being harassed by this guy, and like I did intervene with that, and it's like, come on, man, like stop trying. I know what you're doing here. Move on.
The thing is, Brian, we're too
frustrating.
old. We're too old now. I met Ben in 2011, and in 2012, I think is when we started hanging out. And I'd be like, "Hey, I have a lot of people going to downtown OS." He's like, "I ain't going to downtown OS." He's like, "I don't want to see anybody I know." And I'm like, "That's the reason you don't want to go?"
Look,
Yes, that's fully the reason.
I've enjoyed being back, right?
Right.
But honestly, I'm happy to hear Ben say that because I kind of feel the same way. Like it's one of those things. Like I just.
I think it's like the small chit chat though, to where it's like if you could just casually say, "Hey," and then just keep going, that's different. But if you see somebody out in downtown and you're both like just standing there grabbing a beer, you're like, well,
We're kind of different people at this point too,
Oh, I would hope so.
And
well, the fact that you knew exactly. Okay. Again, yes, exactly. I mean, you would hope that you've evolved past this point, right?
yeah.
But we all know people that.
Yeah, and so it's like it's this weird position you're in where you're trying to make small chat because you want to pick up because you've known them since high school, but
right.
but like you can't because you're different. You got a different set of experiences in life, and
the things you
weird.
found funny in 2008, not funny anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people come up to me and be like, "Katie, do you remember that one time you did this?" And I said, "No, I don't remember that." No. And if I did that now, I'd be arrested.
I'll tell you something I did off the air.
I'm ready.
And I've told a story on here. I don't want to tell it on yours because I don't want to, ruin your episode.
Ruin.
I want it to be something that can be shared.
I love that. That it's ours. It's ours.
There you go.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like, you know, you know, these different people that have moved up in different jobs and stuff. And I was like, oh God, I wonder if they still think that about me from like 2007. And then I have to say to myself, I would really hope that if the positions were opposite, that you wouldn't think that somebody did 20, 15 years ago would still be the same person in front of you today.
Yeah.
That's what I have to tell myself to make myself feel better, right?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. And there's also people that have done really well. And I'm like, how in the hell did you do that? It's great. I love it. But
so happy for you.
Man, I thought you'd be in prison.
Whatever you did, write a book about it. Because I mean, it was successful.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's so many people that just, you say, man, you're just not going to make it. And then they do. But once again, it might be sketchy circumstances, but good for them.
So you've mentioned writing a couple times, writing a book and whatnot. Sure. You've put some thought into it. Do you have a book idea or something that you've been working on? Okay.
Ben and I started our doctorate programs at the same time.
Okay.
Ben will be graduating in August. I had just come off finishing my master's and I started my doctorate program. And I said, I'm over this. I'm out. After one semester. I said, but Ben is the type of person, he can't quit anything. And for me, I said, I'm not into this right now. I'm sure I will go back and finish my doctorate at some point, but not right now.
Why not? What was,
I think it was just, you know, we talk about like evolving and stuff. And I think for me, it was kind of like, it was so funny because I was writing another paper about feminism. And I think it was like the third one. I was in a women's studies class and I said, I think I've written all I can say right now. Even if I'm learning more, I'm not passionate about what I'm writing anymore because I was in a position to where I wasn't seeing students every day anymore. I was mainly like running facilities and stuff like that. So for me, I kind of lost that face-to-face contact with them and therefore lost kind of the motivation to kind of learn more and do more.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, okay, I can stop this PhD program and then focus more on like the nonprofit stuff or focus more on, you know, my dog and being happy instead of like being so consumed by staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm a procrastinator and finishing a paper. Ben on the other hand was like, I'm not quitting. Good for you. I'm so happy for you.
Procrastination is such a funny thing because it's like a negative feedback loop. And it's because you can be successful while procrastinating.
Absolutely.
Encourages you to like procrastinate more.
It is a sick cycle that I was caught in the whirlpool in and I wasn't getting out anytime soon.
Yeah.
I wrote I think it was like a 9-page paper in an hour. And Ben was more stressed than me. He said, I can't work with you like this. I'm like in bed, like watching SVU.
Okay.
Law & Order SVU. And I'm like, he said, you know that paper's due at 5. It's like 3:30. I'm fully aware. I am fully aware. I still get A's. That's the problem, Brian. That is the problem. No, I have not thought about writing a book. But if I did, it would probably be with Ben because I need the balance. Oh. Mine would be more of to go back, alien abductions or something like that, I'm sure. And his would be like, maybe something more practical. No. Not that.
Okay, what's next for you?
What's next? You know, I go back to the chamber in June and hopefully there'll be in-person events. And so hopefully I'll get to see people again.
Yeah.
And then, you know, with Junior Auxilary.
You seem like the kind of person who needs to have people around.
That is so funny because I do during the day, but at night lately I've been like, I don't know if I have that anymore. And I think it's because like when you're at the chamber, this before COVID, when you're networking all day, when you're meeting people all day and hearing these stories and experiencing all these things and you come home, I just want to meet the people I already know.
Yeah.
I just want to be around the stories I already know and hear about their day and like be able to process that. So I think that's something that's changed as I've gotten older. But, oh man, I was extremely extroverted in high school and college. And I think I did too much to where now I'm like,
Does Ben balance you out?
Yes. And I think I bring him out too.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
He's a little quiet. I think, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I would love to hear it.
Being such a big guy.
Sure.
He probably didn't have to try hard to be noticed. You know, and not big in a bad way. I mean, because I've told him he was probably the fastest, biggest guy on the football field I'd ever seen.
And he's hot.
And I mean,
you can say it, Brian. You can.
If he wasn't married, I'm just look.
Would I blame you? Not one bit. Not one bit.
Maybe if he and I do a podcast, you don't let him come alone. Is all I'm saying.
I think you're right in some aspects. But I think the thing that draws people to Ben is that he is this massive dude with this. He does have a presence about him, but it's also it's his heart. Like he's not gonna. That was going to be the follow up. Is that he's a very caring person. He's I would assume a very loving person. Yes. And so it's great to see that he's both these things. He's this big, strong brute of a man, but then also, he's got what you'd want that same person to have. And when he was working with kids a lot, I mean, you could just, the kids, the way they would magnify towards him, just gravitate and just pull into him. And it was because it was this different type of masculinity. Yeah. It was still there. I mean, he's still into sports and stuff like that, but he's just genuine. Yeah. He's not, trying to put on anything. And, I'm sure I don't know when you met your wife, if y'all been together forever.
Piano class in high school.
Really? Oh, that is the cutest thing. Were y'all on the pianos next to each other, or was it like y'all saw each other, there was only one piano?
No, so we all had our keyboards, right?
Oh, keyboards, okay.
we all had our keyboards.
I pictured like a grand
and
piano.
There was one piano in the class.
Okay.
And I was the troublemaker.
Oh,
and
Brian.
She and I hadn't said anything, so... Two quick stories about that. One, I had this thing where I just wanted to annoy the teacher, and so I would play Cold as Ice in every song in some way, shape, or form. If we were doing Moonlight Sonata at some point in the middle of the bridge, I'd do dun, 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 dun.
Yes, absolutely. And if people didn't do that with you, that's their fault.
I know. Well, so I was talking to my buddy Casey, shout out to Casey Dorr, and it was around prom time, and I didn't have anybody to go to prom with. And so I was talking out loud like, oh man, it's prom.
For some reason, there was a mic that dropped down. Oh no!
and I could see her at the corner of my eye, and she just looked really uninterested. And so I kept talking about it out loud, hoping I could get some sort of read because I'm too scared to go talk to her. And then years later, she's like, "I really wish you would have just said something because I was thinking I'll totally go with you, and I didn't. So I think I missed prom that year, but it's my own fault." Yeah,
that's not the story I was expecting.
Oh.
I'm so sorry for you. But if you could go back and ask her, would you? Or do you think that would mess everything up?
Oh, man.
I know. Butterfly effect.
I don't know. Well, honestly, I'm not so convinced that she would say yes. One, because at the time it would have been, it's going to sound weird. So I was a junior, she was a freshman.
Right.
So 2 years in the grand scheme of things does not matter, right?
No, but in high school it does.
It matters,
yeah,
right?
I get it.
And so I don't think that her parents would have let me. And I think that would have potentially turned off future potential right there.
Sure.
I would have, because I know me in that time, I would have vacated that opportunity and moved on.
Right.
So
I have a similar story. My relationship before Ben was very toxic.
Okay.
But he had an apartment in D'Iberville, and Ben was in the same apartment in the building next door. Literally. So if this was Ben's apartment and this was the apartment he was in.
Is this by the gym? Across from the post office?
No, it's in the, what are those? It's in D'Iberville. Are those them? What are they called? Are they called promenade apartments or something like that?
I think so. Because the gym that he goes to, I think, is next door. You got the Ford dealership on the corner.
No. No? Those are the nice ones.
Okay.
This is over on, oh my God, I'm really bad at coast stuff. It's somewhere in D'Iberville. I'll explain it to you later where these apartments are, okay? Because my map stuff is not great. It's not great at all. But anyways, so I was telling him about, when you talk about your past relationships and stuff like that, and he said, I know exactly what apartment you were in because I was dating a police officer at the time. And he said, and we saw that cop car all the time. And I'm like, if we would just ran into each other in the parking lot or something. So then flash forward, that was 2010, 2011. I'm at a house party with my sorority sisters and Ben's there. And they're like, Katie, this is Ben, Katie. And we say hello and that's it. So we're at this little bar called Roper's. And something happened on the dance floor. I was by myself. I thought I was by myself. I turn around and Ben's behind me. And the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was his pickup line?
I'll have to tell you after. I will have to tell you after. But it will make you laugh. It will be one of the first. I don't think you'll ever hear a story like this again. But I wish I could share. I can't wait to tell you. Can't wait. But yeah, Ben's the best. To sum up, Ben is wonderful.
Yeah.
And also donate to Junior Auxiliary at JABOS2021.givesmart.com.
There you go. Well, you heard it here first. Katie, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I really appreciate the work that you're putting in
Of course.
to the community, and more importantly that I'm fired up that you're so fired up about doing it.
Right.
You know, when you're fired up about something, passionate about something, there's really no limit to what you can do with it. And I'm certain that you're going to lead an organization of the same kinds of people. And again, I'm excited to see what y'all are able to do for the coast there.
Right.
And again, thank you for all the work you do with the chamber as well.
Of course,
a lot of great work there.
Brian, we couldn't do it without the support of our members, and every single one of them, powerhouses, amazing. And we couldn't do it without our community. And, you talk about, myself doing, community stuff, but that's what you do right now. Junior Auxiliary has never been asked to come on a podcast before, never been asked to share our story of what we do and the projects that we do. So the fact that you're giving us this avenue or this channel to do that, just speaks volumes. Like, you doing this, you asked how you could help earlier. It's by this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, just letting us have the voice out there to where if we can reach more people who might know somebody who
Sure.
can, greatly impact these kids.
Yeah.
So the thanks goes to you, because this is easy for me.
Y'all are doing the work.
Well, we all are. 100 of us are doing it. So, but for you to take the time to do this and to edit this and to really listen to it, and we got off on our tangents, but still, thank you for having us, because what we do is very important. I won't discredit that. So thank you for letting us talk about it.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, about your work, and we got to get you on again sometime.
Absolutely.
Maybe with Ben too.
With Ben.
Yeah.
That'll be, I would love to see it. I'd like to see it.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Thanks. We'll see you. There it is.
When you